Theodore Roosevelt once said, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena."
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
Seize the day.
Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause.
And I'm gonna stay right here and fight for this lost cause.
You've got to get mad.
I mean plumb mad dog mean.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Who at best, if he wins, knows the thrills of high achievement. And if he fails, at least fails while daring greatness.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
If you had 30 minutes to change the life of a kid, what would you do? What would you say?
Rise and shine. It's 6 a.m. and your hand can't make it to the alarm clock before the voices in your head start telling you that it's too early, too dark, and too cold to get out of bed. Aching muscles lie still in rebellion, pretending not to hear your brain commanding them to move. A legion of voices are shouting their unanimous permission for you to hit the snooze button and go back to dreamland. The voice you've chosen to listen to is one of defiance. A voice that says there was a reason you set that alarm in the first place. So sit up, put your feet on the floor, and don't look back, because we've got work to do.
Hi once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us here on The Man in the Arena. And for those of you I've not wished it to already, a Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021, and thanks so much for being here in a brand new year of The Man in the Arena, and a lot of shows, talking a lot of sports, and a lot of interviews, and a lot of people who are actually great friends. That's one of the great things about this business is I get a chance to do interviews with great friends and people I have known over the years who are actually making a difference. And that's where we're going to begin here today. In past years, there have been so many camps for high school athletes. You see them all the time. If you're involved in high school athletics, you know that there are basketball camps, football camps, soccer camps, all kinds of camps, where they bring the kids in and they get them ready for the next step in life. But in most cases, they're getting them ready for the next step in life athletically. They're not really doing a tremendous amount of preparation with these kids for what happens when you can no longer play the sport. And maybe even for those who don't really want to focus on playing the sport, but want to focus on things that are involved in the sports industry to get them ready for that. These are things that you don't get taught at the high school level, sometimes not even the college level. And the great thing about this program is it brings together the people who have been there, the big name coaches, those who are part of the broadcast industry, the sports industry, and really gets them ready to become the next rising star in sports. And that's the name of this group, the Florida Rising Stars Foundation. And that's what we're going to focus on here today on The Man in the Arena. I mentioned it's always great to get a chance to talk to old friends, and I've had a chance. We haven't talked in a very long time, but this is a gentleman that I met back when I think I was 8 or 9 years old. I want to just say that because it makes me seem a lot younger than I am. He was in charge of all the media for Florida State University, and those are the years I covered the University of Miami football program, the baseball program. I actually did the play-by-play for the baseball program for a couple of years. But when you get a chance to work at the college level, you meet some people who are always there to help you. And when it comes down to what is known in college as sports information, which is basically public relations, media relations, you want to have somebody there who will help you. This guy helps everybody. I mean, frankly, this is one of those individuals who there's not a person in the world who has a negative thing to say about him, which means I hate him already because everybody says negative things about me. He's universally loved for all that he did at Florida State University, at Georgia Tech, and at the University of Montana. But it's those years spent at Florida State University, the football program, Bobby Bowden, Mike Martin, and all those great stories that we're going to tell today. As we get to the Florida Rising Stars Foundation, let's welcome in the Executive Director, a great friend, and a guy who knows college athletics better than just about anybody. He at least knows what the media needs. And God knows they need a lot these days. It's a pleasure to welcome Wayne Hogan onto the Man in the Arena. My friend,
Hey,
long
it's
time.
great.
How you been?
It's great to be with you, Ed. It really is. I was just chuckling at some of your remarks, thinking back on our days, all those many years ago, out at Mark Light Stadium and Doak Campbell and the old Orange Bowl. I mean, my goodness, we've got a lot of history there.
People don't realize with the old Orange Bowl, but again, we do. There were those of us who, when we parked at the old Orange Bowl, and we used to always park in somebody's front yard.
Yes,
a lot of
correct.
times because there wasn't enough
Correct.
parking there, and that's how those people made money for the entire year. You'd look up at the Orange Bowl and you'd go, it's a wonderfully historic place, but my God, sometimes it looks like a dump.
One of my favorite places on earth. I swear to goodness, you think about the history in there. I hated to see it come down. I agree with you. I mean, it did get a little rusty and a little musty
tattered
in its old days. But every time you went in there, you could just feel the history, right? There was a story told. I'm not sure you know this, but some of the old ticket guys that I worked with that used to bang around underneath the catacombs of the old Orange Bowl Stadium claimed there was a fox that lived in there for many years. There was this. Nobody ever saw it. Nobody ever was able to capture it on a picture, but they claimed there was an old fox that prowled around under there. So have you ever heard of that?
I did, but I tend to think there's a lot more animals that lived under the Orange Bowl stands than just a fox. Because I swear, I mean, rats, raccoons, snakes, everything you could possibly want lived underneath there. And I do remember one time going on the bottom floor because I had to walk up the ramp, and God is my witness. Everybody talks these days about this story and this video that they have in New York of a rat eating pizza. That was one rat eating pizza. I had a whole family going after a box. I mean, there was like 6 or 7 of them. And as I'm walking up the ramp, again, God is my witness, the rat kind of looks at me and goes, okay, goodbye. And goes right back to the pizza. So it was
those Florida State Miami games of the mid to late 80s and early 90s. I don't think you could ever duplicate that. That was just the most magnificent games, and of course, just the whole ambiance. The Orange Bowl, I swear, was shaking at the rafters. It was so loud and so crazy in there. And the same thing up in Tallahassee when we used to play.
Oh, Doak Campbell is just one of those stadiums where, and it's like the Orange Bowl, where it's almost as if you're immersed by it. You can feel it's a cocoon of noise that rises above you, and you swear that there's got to be a dome above you because the sound isn't going anywhere.
Right.
And with the Orange Bowl, you're right. It did sway. And there's friends of ours, and I talk to them every now and then. I will go back to them to this day, and we will tell you about sitting in the press box and feeling the damn stadium do this. You don't get that anymore. It's a shame because that was all part of the nuance of it, and it was one of the most uncomfortable stadiums in the world because it was concrete. It was concrete and wood benches that you had to sit on, but nobody cared.
No, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody ever sat down during those games anyway, Ed.
No, it's very true too. Nobody. The student section never did, and by the time the first couple of minutes of the game started, nobody wanted to sit. I mean, the beer lines were about the only thing where you moved for, but that was about it. Before we get started, I got to tell this, and this is one of the great memories that I have of the Orange Bowl and Florida State games. And again, you mentioned the fact that Florida State and Miami played legendary games at the Orange Bowl and at Doak Campbell. Bowl games, too. And after a game where Miami had won, and there's so many games, I believe it was the 10-9 game that Miami won. And I'd have to go back and check, but I think that was it. I'm a radio reporter at the time, and the locker rooms are just that. If you go in there, they were at the closed end zone. You entered in, there was a tiny little anteroom right outside where people would wait, and it was concrete, nothing special. And it was a game that the Noles lost. And there was Bobby Bowden. And he's he slumped against the wall. And I've never seen him like that before. He had been drained. And he goes, "Dadgummit, I just don't know what happened. I don't know. We had the game. It was right there, and it was, Dadgummit, I just don't know." That was the moment that Dadgummit was born for me, and everybody knows the story. It's Bobby's favorite line. But the emotion in those games was incredible. Bobby had to be so much fun to work around. He was a hard taskmaster when it came to football, but my God, the man was just so likable. Again, like you. Even your enemies like you.
I tell people all the time that for 17 years I had the easiest job in sports. I was Bobby Bowden's PR guy. How hard can that be? What you do is you just wind him up and you let him go, right? He was Ed. He was unbelievable. He never said no. These coaches nowadays, and I've worked with a lot more since the time I was with Bobby, but they're so guarded, and there's so many policies and so many rules, and they won't talk to anybody on Thursdays and Tuesdays, and nobody after noon on whatever day, and you won't allow their players access, the media access with their players, and all of those types of things. The entire time I worked with Coach Bowden for 17 years, I was with him every single day, and I don't remember one time that he denied a request, that he did not make himself or others accessible. It was the most open, transparent athletic facility that you could ever imagine having. And for that reason, I think Florida State made some great strides in terms of being a national brand. It wasn't only the fact that we were winning games, and that certainly doesn't hurt, that you're winning games at a high rate, you're playing a lot of big games, but so many other schools around us. I know down at Gainesville back in those days, Spurrier and some of those other coaches that went into there, and it was even before Spurrier, they locked everything down. The media couldn't get access to the players. And so what would happen is everybody that wanted a column or everybody that wanted a story on game week, they would come to Tallahassee because they knew they would be able to get access. And so we were able to get tremendous coverage, make a lot of friends, like yourself and many others. I get people reaching out to me all the time that covered the team back in those days, and they still tell me to this day how much they appreciated the fact that everything was open to them. There was nothing denied in terms of them being able to do their job. So it's not like that anymore. Anywhere. It will never be like that anywhere. But it was magical while it was happening, and I was tickled to be a part of it.
It's funny when you bring that up about the difference between then and now, and the guarded nature of what is athletics from the managerial side, the coach side, the players side even. Is it not fair to say, Wayne, that the reason that happened, people want to say it's because of big money and people want to control their brands. Yeah, I get that. That's part of it. But there's also the press side of things. Because in my years and in those years, you had tough, hard-boiled types of press guys who knew their sports, and really hard questioning sports gals who came in there and wanted to ask the tough questions. But there was a respect that was between the press and Bobby, the press and Mike Martin, the press and so many others who were up there at the time, that now, and I don't want to sound like an old guy, but I think it's fair to say, there are members of the media these days and the press who don't have that sort of respect anymore, who don't come in well prepared, who don't know their subject matter. And far too often, I think coaches got to the point, Wayne, where they get tired of answering the same stupid questions at press conferences, knowing full well that somebody had never been with the team before, knew nothing about the sport or the game or the players, and was really just looking for a needling type of answer that they could go, "Oh, gotcha." We got answers like that in talking to coaches before, but we never wanted to do that. I think that the press corps of, and let's take it from 2000 and beyond, has really sort of soured that relationship, and a big reason why it'll never be the way it was, and never that sort of friendly respect that we had.
Oh, I think you're right on to something there. And there was generally speaking back in back in the day, and again, I don't want to come off like an old man either, but back in the day, as they say,
Back in the day,
there was a core group of media folks. The writers, the faces of the writers and the columnists were pretty much the same. Coach Bowden got to know them all personally, knew every one of them. Had a great rapport. The TV guys, radio guys like yourself and others, they were all well known to all of us. So we were able to work with each other. We were able to work together. We had great professional relationships, and we had great personal relationships with the media back in those days. It was allowed in those days for a coach or for a PR guy like myself to go out and have a beer with you.
sure.
And nobody thought twice about it. We could be friends, and we could do things after hours, after work hours and things of that nature. So that was then. This is now. You've got a whole group of people. Social media has come into play. You got people blogging that are sitting in their basement in their underwear, blogging. And then they show up and they want access to your head coach or whatever it might be. So there's really no delineation anymore, and those relationships are not built the way they were. Those were fun times. I look back all the time and say I'm really glad I worked in it when it was like that, because I don't
fun.
know that I would be very happy in that same job today.
Can we also, though, not look at the fact that colleges, and you've been involved at 3 colleges at a major athletic director level, at Florida State, Georgia Tech, and the University of Montana, that the colleges now, the universities, and the athletic departments are more concerned than ever before about their brand, because the brand drives the bucks. And that's where you need to make right now. It is more corporatized than it ever was before. You have players doing really stupid things on social media that they have to constantly be aware of. You have, let's be honest, you have things going on underneath at some programs that are not on the up and up and are breaking those rules, and the schools do want to protect them, and they do want to try and correct them in many ways. But it's the money. It is the money that has done that, and it is the brand that's done it, because if your brand gets affected these days by anything negative, you could be looking at a loss of millions of dollars, and schools can't afford that anymore. The major schools certainly can't afford that, because the athletic department and the money there many times drives the university too. And there's so many things that have to be paid for, and the cost has become ridiculous, that maybe in many ways, with the press corps that's out there, it's better to hold it at an arm's length right now, Wayne, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you've got to protect your brand, your company, at all costs.
I don't disagree with that. And your characterization of what it's like today is right on. It is all about the money. It's all about protecting the brand so you can generate revenue, continue to do things, come up with creative and other ideas. But one of the things that I'll tell you, and I believe this to my core. I think when we went to this, when we finally got a college football playoff, and I love everybody that was involved in how that was created, and you went to the Final Four, who's in, the whole idea of who's in. Well, that drove just incredible wealth to colleges and athletic departments. So much wealth that these athletic departments didn't know how to even spend it all. It was literally that much money that was infused into these college programs. And I think what you've seen is you've seen this deal where now, we've always had arms races, but my goodness, when were we building $100 million football facilities with bowling alleys and movie theaters in them? When in the world did we ever think we'd see us paying offensive line coaches $1 million a year? It's just this embarrassment almost of riches that has come into these athletic programs. And I don't want to begrudge anybody. I mean, that's just the world in which we live right now. but I'm not sure it's made life any better. You've got now the athletes that are coming in, and rightfully so. They want to have a discussion about name, image, and likeness, and should they get a cut of the action? That's been coming for years, and it's finally moving to a head. So that's going on. You see these programs that are firing coaches and that it costs $24 million just to make a guy go away. My goodness gracious. And you got a guy like Malzahn and the guy Herman at Texas. Those guys, it cost over $20 million just to send them packing, and neither one of them have a bad record. It's not like they're 2-10 every year. These guys are doing a decent job coaching, and yet we just have $20 million to throw at it. And don't forget, and everybody reports, it costs $20 million to buy this guy out. It's going to cost another $20 million to get the new staff in, because you're going to have to go get a new head coach. You're going to have to pay somebody that he owes a part of the contract. You're going to have to move all these assistant coaches in. And guess what? The new coach is going to want more money for his assistants than the money you're paying now. It's just a never-ending trail of cost. And it seems that, again, in the last several years, these programs, $20 million seems to be a drop in the hat anymore. I don't know if that's good, Ed. I don't know if that's good.
I tend to agree with you there. You've been involved with 3 major programs in your time. You were involved at Florida State. You were involved at Georgia Tech. You were there at the University of Montana. So you have been at that big time level where money has to be spent and money has to be made. When you look at your experiences and what you just discussed as to where we're going right now, is it sustainable for these colleges to continue like this? Because it would seem that we are reaching that point where the ceiling, we're bumping up against that money ceiling every day. And especially with COVID-19, as we speak right now, putting so many programs into a financial problem. They need to now start to find some of that money that's been hidden away and squirreled away so well over the years, that perhaps do you get a sense it will change, or is this just a blip on the radar and these programs are going to continue along the same way simply because it's the way that it is?
I was hoping, and I hope against hope right now, that the COVID situation, the pandemic that all of the athletic programs have faced, is in some way a wake-up call to tell them that it's not an endless money train. Things happen. Things can happen to your brand, to your program. Things out of your control can happen. So, I think in some weird way, this is kind of a reset. I really believe it's kind of going to serve as a reset for college sports. I think we're going to take another look at the playoff system and whether we need to expand it and how we do that. We're going to take another look at how we distribute funds. We're going to certainly take a look at, how we deal with this idea of student athletes getting paid for their likenesses and their images and their jerseys and those types of things. So if the pandemic has done anything in the world, maybe it's the fact that it made us all take a step back and look at our business and kind of reevaluate the way we were operating, like there was going to be no end, like the money trees were going to continue to grow and it was never going to be stopped. So my hope is it gets better. My hope is it changes in sustainable ways, and maybe we can get back to some common sense that we used to have in the old days, hopefully.
My goodness, common sense. Let me write those 2 words down very quickly. see, I swear to you, I don't hear those 2 words anymore. It's like, oh my God, common sense. Stunning idea. All right, let's talk about something then positive about what you're doing right now, because as I mentioned at the top of the show, there are so many camps out there for kids to go to. Young men, young women can go to all these athletic camps that are out there. Football, baseball, basketball, track, whatever you want. But what I have always been asking about these camps, and you're answering it, which is a great idea, is it's wonderful to be able to teach these kids what's going to happen on the field, on the court, wherever you play. And it's good to help them with their athletic skills there and get them ready for the next step, which is most usually college, and then hopefully one day it'll reach to the pros, which so few actually make. but having them ready for life in other areas outside of just the competitive side of things. I think what you're doing with the Florida Rising Stars Foundation is you are setting a new bar. I think you're taking the bar a little bit higher here and trying to take these kids and say, remember, you're really good at what you do right now, and you can throw a 60-yard pass without a sweat, but someday you won't be able to do that, or you might not be able to make the big shot one day at the end of the game. So you better be prepared for things after that. So give us a quick idea of Florida Rising Stars and how this all came about, and how right or wrong I am in what you're trying to do.
No, you're exactly right on, and I am just elated to be a part of it. I'm glad to be back in Florida. I had left after my FSU experience and been back about 5 years. I did a little bit of work with the Florida Sports Hall of Fame for a number of years, for the last 5 years or so, and we really brought that organization along. That's another 501c3, just like Florida Rising Stars. But I really am excited about this venture. I got involved with a gentleman named Jan Richard very recently, who had done a lot of the groundwork for Florida Rising Stars. And by groundwork, what I mean is he had this idea. He had the idea about how do we make a more complete camp setting for kids, but primarily high school age kids, who many of which can't afford to come to a camp like this, can't afford the top-notch tutoring and coaching and teaching that takes place. So how do we form a 501c3 that will allow these kids to come to these what we call experiences, and they can learn a whole myriad of different things at these camps. It's literally a 1 day, sometimes 2 days of instruction. And what you said is exactly right. We do have on the field instruction. We'll have some of the best high school coaches in the state that are on board with us. We've gotten into an agreement with the Florida High School Coaches Association, and they're going to provide really good on the field instruction for kids that want to come out and they want to learn about, to be better football players or baseball or softball or soccer, whatever the sport may be. But the part that's really close to my heart, Ed, is the fact that we're going to teach kids that want to be involved in sports that aren't necessarily going to be on the field kids that may not have the athletic skills to play, but they want to get involved in sports marketing or sports broadcasting. They want to be a broadcaster like you. And they want to do this. They want to do
Please,
play
I got to stop them real quick. Let me stop. Save yourself.
They want to see themselves one day.
Anything.
They want to see themselves one day on ESPN, and they think that's cool. They think that's cool, to be a part of that. There's kids that want to be involved in marketing and social media. How many kids sit around the house and they're really good these days at all of the social media and the computers and all of the programs, and they're nerds. I can say that because I worked at Georgia Tech. I knew a lot of them, and they proudly call themselves nerds. All right. But these kids are sitting around, and they're not going to want to go out and throw a block or make a tackle, but they think sports are pretty cool too. So how do I take my computer skills and my social media skills and do something in an athletic setting that's going to expand the brand? So we'll have all these different, 5 to be exact. We call ourselves the Florida Rising Stars. Our logo is a star. It has 5 points. And each of those points represents one of the fields. And you'll see on your screen the on-the-field sports programs that I mentioned. Then we have the Bill Patrick School of Sports Broadcasting. That's for those kids that want to come in and learn a little bit about what it's going to take. Athletic training and sports medicine. How many kids really want to be a trainer? They want to go on to be a part of that kind of world.
A growing field.
So you've got that. You've got the sports marketing and sports information. And my favorite that we've added, and nobody thinks of this, sports officiating. We've got a great bunch of guys that have come together and explained to us the importance of being able to train and entice young people into becoming sports officials, because 2 reasons. One reason is we need them. We need a lot more officials than there are in the world. There's not enough to go around. Second, they can support themselves by doing it. They can make a lot of money. These kids, if they're in college and they need meal money or they need money to go on dates or whatever it may be, you can make a lot of money refereeing and being a sports official. So we'll introduce that life.
Conversation when you first got there, we were talking about the 5 points, and you mentioned sports officiating. I could hear in your voice that was one of the real things that you were excited about. And I gotta admit, I sat back and thought for a minute, gee, you want to teach a kid to be abused for the rest of her life by parents, by look, I'm thinking about the incident that happened in Texas recently where there was the player who attacked the official and they basically bounced him from competitive play for the rest of his life, which I think was right. I mean, quite frankly, there should have been some kind of criminal charges involved in this. But what you're talking about is a very specialized profession that people don't think about. They just say, honestly, Wayne, I think people think officials just come out of midair. They just grab them off the field and there they are. This is a big money business.
One thing we're going to show is, we're going to debunk a lot of that thinking that you just brought out, that you're going to be abused and this, it's not that we're going to teach these kids that does happen, but let me just explain it in economic terms. What we may do is bring in some spreadsheets to show these kids the kind of economic impact it can have on their lives. And this is really what excites me. Think about this, and I know the people that view this are going to understand this completely. There are all of these communities and counties that are building massive sports complexes. They have 30 fields to play football and basketball and baseball and soccer fields as far as you can see, and lacrosse. And so then they go out and they market these big complexes, and they market them out of state. We're down here in Florida. We've got all this great weather, and we've got now massive numbers of fields. And so the CVBs of these counties or sports commissions will go out and they'll market, come to Florida and have a major tournament. So they could bring 40 or 50 teams in all the time. They're rolling these teams in one after the other. Well, they're all patting themselves on the back saying, isn't this great? We brought all these people. The economic impact of Florida is great. All the parents are here. All the teams are here. They're all staying in hotels. They're eating in our restaurants. What they don't remember is you got to have officials to call all these games. And there's, as I mentioned, there's a dearth of officials. We just don't have a lot of them. We certainly don't have a lot of them at a younger age. So there's money to be made. These are great careers that these kids can have, either a career or certainly a vocation, an avocation that they can do that will create some revenue. So that's just one example. We could go through that with every one of the 5 stars. But the fun thing is, Ed, that we're going to have just amazing people teaching and tutoring these kids. Now, don't get me wrong. We understand you're not going to learn everything there is to know about sports marketing or sports medicine in one day. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but at least give them a taste. That's the important thing here, which they wouldn't
give them a taste. Give them a taste. Wet their whistle a little bit and tell them this is what your life would be like. Are you interested or not? These are the skills you'll need to develop. These are the contacts you'll need to make. This is what you need to work on if you want to work in this part of the sports industry. And then they just at least have an idea. For years and years, I worked in college sports, and people would come into my office, these students, these college-age students, many of them in the last year or two of their college time, they'd walk into my office and say, hey, I've always wanted to work in sports. How do I do it? And I go, well, where have you been? Where have you been the last 2 or 3 years? And they don't have a clue. They have no clue of how to start, where they want to fit in, what skills they need. They really don't. So my passion right now, after all those years in the business, is to give these kids a little bit of a taste so that now when they do go into that administrator's office, they're not just walking in with blinders on.
When we do this, and going back to what I talked about with regard to the camps themselves, there's 2 things here that come to mind right away. Larry Bluestein's a great friend of mine. yours as well. Larry knows high
Yes.
school sports inside and out in the state of Florida, and he and I have talked about this for years, where many of these camps, let's see if I can say this delicately without going too far. Many of these camps are, simply put, not good, and they don't really have the kids in mind. They're there for the buck, and they're trying to get these kids who can't afford it, parents who can't afford it, and they're giving them these lessons which don't seem like much at all. They're bringing them in to basically fleece them. Now, let me back this up before everybody starts to get on here and I start to hear the pitchforks coming after me. That's not everybody. There's a lot of great camps out there that are wonderful, that have honest people that are doing a great job and helping these kids get ready for the next level. But this is something that doesn't just look at the athletic side, and I think that's the thing that we need to hammer away on here, Wayne, is that sure, the coaches will be there, the former players will be there. You want to learn from them. That's the attraction to these kids to get them in there. They want to learn from these people who know the sport inside and out. But we have got to do a better job of preparing this next generation for that next generation. Because I do believe that there is still a preponderance here for a lot of these camps nationally, not just Florida, but a lot of them will try and make everybody think you're going to be a first or a second round draft pick in the NFL, or you're going to play in the NHL, or you're going to be big in the NBA, or you're going to win an Olympic gold medal. Guess what? That's 1%. Maybe that 1% of 1%. And these kids and their parents get stars in their eyes and they go, oh my God, things are going to be great. No, you have to prepare for life without sports. That's the thing about what you're doing that grabs me, in that we have got to make it a well-rounded idea. And it's a couple of days, but plant that one bug in a kid's head, and she all of a sudden is going to think about that college education that she's got to grab, and to know that she's going to be prepared for the day after the cheering stops.
And there's one more footprint that's even better to tie this all in a bow, if we could. That footprint is, at the end of the day, after these kids go and they split off into their various curriculums and they do what they would do, we bring everybody back together at the end of the day, and we talk to them about how all of what they did interacts to become one big team. So you got players on the field, you got people doing the sports medicine, you got people doing the broadcast, and you got all. So now we've created this team, and we take that, and this is the best part. We have instruction and advice from all these celebrity athletes and celebrity entertainers and just plain old celebrities across the board, broadcasters and others, that are going to talk to these kids before they leave that day about the keys to their success in life, where they're going to talk about drug abuse, and they're going to talk about their own experiences with bad things that have happened to them, or things that they should have done that they didn't do, or things that they did that they should not have done. And these are people that these kids will look up to, and they will know them because their faces are familiar. And they're people like Johnny Damon, and they're people like Benny Blades, and they're people like, I could go on and on, Steve Spurrier. My goodness, Vince Dooley just joined our group. And these people are going to come on, and Mark Richt, and they're going to talk to these kids. And it's not as if they're, it's not as if they're looking down on them. They're giving them some advice about life and just what you talked about. So this is a full slate of activity for these kids. This is not a babysitting operation. This is something. Excellent word. This is something that's going to mean something from the time they get there till the time they leave, and I'm real proud of it. I wouldn't hook my wagon to this if I didn't think it was really unique. As you know, I've been around a long time, and this is something that I really get a kind of a gleam in my eye when I think about it, and I think we're gonna make it go. We've got some work to do here in 2021, though, Ed. The pandemic set us back in terms of being able to run our first camps. We've got to get to that point, and that happens in the early spring of 2021. We'll be coming out with some dates and locations for these camps, and so all of this is right before our eyes, and we're just extremely excited about it. We're excited to have you working with us.
Absolutely. I mean, come on, what are friends for if you can't do this later in life? I mean, that's what friends know each other for. I want to speak to what you mentioned here, and that's some of the people that are involved. And I think it's a great opportunity here we have to point out to people the level of these ambassadors that are going to be part of the Florida Rising Stars Foundation.
By donating to the Florida Rising Stars experience, you have the opportunity to assist deserving young people by giving them the chance to participate in a world-class introduction to their desired focus in sports, tutored by some of the nation's greatest sports celebrities and practitioners. Just as there are 5 points on our star, there are 5 tracks to choose from in each of our 1- and 2-day sports experiences. Of course, there will be multiple opportunities to learn and participate in various sports instruction on the field. But what sets us apart is the chance for young people who have an interest in related sports career tracks to gain a parallel camp education taught by the best and brightest practitioners in their chosen field. And best of all, each of these tracks leads to the center of our star, which contains the life lessons embedded in sports. Our all-star cast of more than 50 ambassadors will provide unmatched instruction and pass along their personal stories of success and advice to help these young people improve their lives.
Adversity will come, and when it does, it will work to divide you and weaken unity that is so necessary for success.
You got to figure out what kind of a leader do you want to be, or how do you go about being a leader.
And always be thankful for what you have in life. Be the best you can be. That will take you farther in life than all the championships you can win.
Got my old buddy Johnny Damon involved in there because I can hardly wait to get a chance, and we're going to get Johnny on the show here to talk more about Florida Rising Stars here in the near future.
Yes.
But the time that I spent with them and the World Series and being there for that whole World Series ride with that insane bunch of characters that were there, the idiots they called themselves, and Damon was right up there. It was so much fun, but to look at that, he's been there. He's been at the highest level of the game. And he was there with the Red Sox and the Yankees. And to get that sort of an education from people like this is completely invaluable for anybody to get involved in. So as you're putting this all together, and you and Jan have been working on this, what's the next step? Because I know that COVID-19, again, has put everybody behind us, as you mentioned. But 2021 is a year where we all need to take that next step forward. Where are we going from here?
We're going to develop some dates, which we should have very soon. I believe we'll announce some dates that will be in March. We will look at what favorable sites are for us to have these events around. They'll be around Florida. Certainly, right now we're looking at starting with 3 sites in Central Florida for sure. That would be the Tampa Bay area, the Orlando area, and Gainesville, and then we're going to come to South Florida. We've got an opportunity to come down to the Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale area. Don't have the exact site there yet, but we're working with some folks down in that part of the state to bring one of our activities down there. So we'll need to get our first camps off the ground, our first experiences, as I say. We're working on our curriculum right now. We're looking at ways to fund a lot of what we're doing. We do need some financial assistance to get started. The financial assistance, by the way, goes so that we can have scholarships, as it were. I'll call them scholarships for these young kids. We don't, as much as we can, we don't want these kids to have to bear the financial burden of having to pay to come to the camp. We think there are individuals and corporations that would be more than happy to send 5 kids to our camp, or 10 kids. It's going to be very doable. It's not going to be an extravagantly priced thing, but that's kind of where we started. We're doing a GoFundMe site. We hope we can raise money in terms of $20 or $25 or $10 at this point, and we hope there's going to be a number of people that want to contribute that. that money will all go into helping us help these kids attend these camps. And by the way, we'll work with Boys and Girls Clubs. We'll work with Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches. We have a great plethora of organizations that already are involved in helping youth, but they're not involved in helping youth in what we're doing. So we can bring those kids and give them this experience, and that's what our goal is.
Need to point out too that this is a nonprofit organization that's involved here, and that's why we're out here to tell people about this, but also to tell them that, I have seen, and you have seen this as well, we have all seen corporate sponsors by the billions go by the boards over our years in college athletics and in different amateur athletics. And these days, especially at a time when it is difficult for a lot of people to make ends meet, and for kids in a lot of places who simply don't have a tremendous amount of money for gear or to go to camps or to go places or to learn more, this is the perfect opportunity for they and their parents, their guardians, the people that are involved, to take them to that next step. And what you're also doing is unique in the fact that it's no charge to the kids, is what we're looking for at this point. Honestly, I think that's a no-brainer for any corporate organization that's looking to get involved, because the ability that they're going to have to help kids who are going to, and some of them will become NBA first-round picks. Some of them will play in the National Football League. Some will play in the WNBA. Some will go on to great careers. It's the perfect launching pad to get involved in here. So, I mean, hell, I'll say it this way. If you're going to spend your money, spend it in a good place. I mean, spend it where it can do the most good, right?
Yeah, go right to our Facebook page. Our Facebook and Twitter pages. The sites are on the screen. FL Rising Stars. And our website is a great place to go. You'll find our GoFundMe information at all of those places. That's FloridaRisingStars.com. You'll see it across the bottom of your screen. And those are easy places to go to learn about our organization. You'll be able to watch the video that we saw bits and pieces of just now. And also we'll be able to click into an opportunity to donate through our GoFundMe site and our opportunities there. So I hope people will take a good hard look at it. It's an exciting venture. We've got some great people, some very recognizable people with huge character that are involved. So I hope we certainly come across as looking like we're going to present something that's going to be very valuable to the state of Florida.
Personally, I have never been involved with anybody that I didn't trust, and people that weren't friends, and people that I know had their heart in the right place. And that's why we're having you on the show today, to make sure that we get the word out there, because this is a worthwhile cause at a time in America when we need more worthwhile causes, when we need some positives, when we need to take that next generation and we need them to become a fruitful next generation, a successful next generation. And they can do that, which comes from people like us, who are the ones out there giving them the nickel's worth of experience that they need and helping them through. Look, tutorships, whatever you want to call it, internships, whatever, they're great, but you got to give people some real honest answers as to what goes on in every organization and every walk of life. And that to me is the reason why this is perfect. And if I ever get my hands on those kids who want to become broadcasters, and Bill and I get a chance to work together, I'm going to tell them the real things that happen here in sports broadcasting, and I will pull them in. I'll say, come on, baby, we're going to make you great. We're going to make you the next band that actually is going to do something fun. That's what I want to do.
That's what they need to know, Ed. That's what they need to know.
All right. Now, before we leave, and we've got so much out here, and I want to make sure that everybody goes to the website and goes to all the various places. I mean, don't forget, go to FloridaRisingStars.com. Don't worry, I'm going to remind you about that again in a couple of minutes. Also, don't forget, Facebook and Twitter is at FL Rising Stars. You can get all the information there. Before we leave, I wanted to make sure that people realize that before Wayne and I were sitting here, there were times in the past. There were times when we were young. We were carefree. We were involved in sports. And the one thing that Wayne and I both share in this, and I didn't put it up because I'm not going to, is that we both had the porn mustache. I mean, let's be honest here, kids. I mean, this was, I think that, what is this, about 1994 maybe?
That's a fresh-faced kid right there. Yeah, that's probably about that time.
Oh man, that's at Florida State, and that's the years that I knew you and we got to know each other, and the years that you were hanging around with Bobby and Billy and everybody else who was there. I mean, God, it's just a great time. Is this a picture that you now try to keep away from people? Because I don't know about you, but there are pictures of yours truly with the porn stash, and don't everybody get offended by that. It's a joke, okay? That's really what it is. And I still have people who come up to me and go, look, you were Ron Burgundy, Ed, before Ron Burgundy was Ron Burgundy. I said, exactly. He stole it from me, and I want that money from all those residual checks. But, I mean, there was a time when we were that young, when we were just having fun, and I will not let any of these pictures out, Wayne. I mean, I found...
There's an interesting story about this picture. I must tell you, this when I was at Florida State, my last year that I was there, I was asked to serve as the interim athletic director. This was in 1994, the year after Charlie Ward in the national championship, and so I served for just about 1 year as the interim AD. Never got the permanent position. Would have liked to have, but things didn't work out that way. But anyway, at Florida State, they hang photographs of all the athletic directors through the years. And a while back, someone before me who had served as an interim AD noticed that they had only posted the pictures of the permanent ADs, and the interim ADs didn't get a spot. So this guy literally went to the president and lobbied the president. The president decreed that if you served as an interim AD, you should have your damn picture on the wall.
Hell yeah.
So this was the picture that they chose. Now, the funny thing about this picture, if you go to the athletic building at Florida State right now, to this day and time, you'll walk down a hall, all these beautiful pictures of all the ADs, and mine's at the very end, right next to the men's room. Literally, the door to the men's room is 5 feet from this picture on the wall at FSU.
I've got about 1,000 retorts I could make to that. But I'm not going to do any of them because we have set some really goodwill here today, and I'm not going to blow everybody away by saying it. But that's the reality of the situation in sports, everybody. I mean, when you look at it, remember that when you look at the people like, I don't know, the great sportscasters, if you will, who are out there, or the great athletes, everybody goes to the bathroom, damn it. We all go. Natural.
Well, somebody told me that was the best place to have your photo because more people will go right by. I mean, what the heck?
Think about that. Everybody who goes, every male who walks down that hall who has to relieve themselves now knows who Wayne Hogan is. And here it is too. Oh man, I tell you, lunch was hell, man. I really got to go. Go down this hall, make a left, and then make a right at the picture of Wayne Hogan.
Make a right at Hogan. That's
Think about that. You're now famous, man. Make a right at Hogan. It's good. That's where everything takes care of. Listen, I cannot thank you enough for this. This has just been fun just going down memory lane, and we could do this all day long, and I need to go back and find. And I will bet you, by the way, when you mentioned Bobby Bowden was a kind of a guy, you're right, who you could call him at home for an interview, and we did that several times, and we were doing the original Press Box, the fastest show in sports on Miami and syndicated national radio. And I'll never forget, there were times when my producer said, we got a hole, we got to fill it, call Bowden, call Bobby. And
Ed, to
he'd
this
get him on the
day,
phone, he'd go, what's up, boy? Is that what you need? Okay, let's go, boy, let's go.
To this day, Bobby Bowden's phone number is listed in the Tallahassee phone directory. It's been there since he came to Florida. The entire time he coached, you look in the phone book. Those of you who remember phone books, back in the days when we had phone books.
I was just going to say, you're going to have people who are watching
phone books.
going, what the hell is
you go in there, and it would say, Robert C. Bowden, Robert C. Bowden, there he is, and it'd have his phone number listed, anyone in the world. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, you call his house, and he's the guy that answers the phone. Hello,
Yes.
it's Coach
Yes.
Bowden.
he still does to this day. And I'll bet you if we called him right now and said, Bobby, you need to come on the show. I'm going to have some dinner, boy. Why don't you call me a little bit later on? Oh, well, no, okay, let's go now. Some of the other coaches would be, what the hell do you want? Oh, and true story. And that brings it. There was another coach, a very well-known, and one of these days I'll spit out his name, when I was doing radio shows in Miami at WIOD, and I called him at, he was the manager of one of the best baseball teams in the, I don't care what the hell, Earl Weaver. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. Go ahead and get me. What somebody going to do? I called Earl Weaver because the Baltimore Orioles used to train in Miami at the old Miami Stadium.
Right,
It was
sure.
only one field and maybe something out back in the parking lot. And I called him and I got him at his hotel. And I said, Mr. Weaver, this is Ed Berliner from WIOD and Sportsline. Can I get you to come on the show here in a couple of hours and talk about the Orioles? Come on, this is a long time ago. First words out of his mouth. What's it pay? Excuse me?
Yeah.
He said, well, you want me to be on your show? What's it pay? I said, Mr. Weaver, we don't pay. Ah, crap. Really? You bothered me for this shit? Exact word. I'm going to use it. I don't care. And you're not going to pay me? Call me some other time. Click. That's when I was new in the business. I said, okay, now I know where it all comes from. He was the only guy who ever did that my whole life. Bobby Bowden and others, pick up the phone and call him. It's a wonderful time. Listen, let's remind everybody again what's going on here. This is to get you interested, to get people interested, to get parents, kids, sponsors, people who are out there who want to be a part of what will be a legendary organization that will really take student athletes and help them with both the student and the athlete part as they get ready for the next step, going from the high school ranks mostly to the college ranks. It will give them the realities of what they're doing. It will make sure that they understand everything that is going to happen. It's Florida Rising Stars, and as you'll see here on the graphic, it's a 1 and 2 day sports experience with on-field sports. Bill Patrick will teach broadcasting. Bill's a great guy. Athletic training and sports medicine, sports marketing, sports information, sports officiating. Everything is there, and all you have to do is check it out at the website, FloridaRisingStars.com, or the Facebook and the Twitter page at FL Rising Stars, to learn more about what they do. You get in touch with Wayne, and they'll go ahead and set you up. Wayne, let's do this again. We'll get some stories on. We're going to have some of the ambassadors on here, hopefully in the next couple of months. We'll tell some stories.
You bet.
And really, I'm proud to be your friend, proud to be involved in this and help you guys with the effort. So let's get things going and let's get people happy again. Let's make a happy America again, shall we?
It's been fun, sir. And I think everybody's ready for that. I think that's a unanimous vote. Yes. Happy is good in 2021.
I got that. A happy New Year to you and your family, buddy. We'll talk again real soon. Give
Yes,
everybody
sir.
my best and stay healthy. We'll talk to you soon, Wayne. Thanks a lot.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Wayne Hogan and the guys at the Florida Rising Stars Foundation. We've given you all the information again. Make sure you get a hold of them and make sure that you follow up. Don't forget, you can get all the information here by rewatching or re-listening to the show here on The Man in the Arena. You can get us at all the major podcast platforms to listen at your convenience. Go to YouTube, edberlinerlive.com, or go to maninthearena.com, and also check out my Facebook page, my Twitter pages as well, where you can watch the show again and learn a lot more about what goes on. Thanks so much for joining us. Listen, Happy New Year again to those that I've missed. Have a wonderful 2021. Let's all be healthy. Let's all be safe. Let's all have some fun. Let's all smile a little more. Yeah, we can talk about the hard stuff and the controversial stuff, but let's have a little fun while we're on the way. Thanks to Wayne Hogan again and the great people at the Florida Rising Stars Foundation. I'm Ed Berliner. For all of us here, till next time, rock on, true believers. See ya!
You're still here?
Are you not entertained?
It's over.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Go home.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Go.
That's all, folks.